Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's March 29th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day, presented as always by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And Matt Shodell, let me thank you for a minute for adjusting your camera so that I can see more of that glorious horse's butt that you've got behind you. In fact, you know what? Before we get started here,
Nope. Good luck with that.
I'm going to use my executive privilege here at CaneSport, and let me tell the backstory real quick. One of our most loyal subscribers, the guy that's been with us for many, many years, he sent in a painting that he made to replace that horse behind your head. And he named the painting Out of the Darkness. And I'm not going to say his name or his screen name on our message boards because I don't know if he would like that or not. But I am going to show you the painting, and we're gonna get this painting to you here in the next couple days to replace that horse's butt that you've got over your head for Good Morning CaneSport. This painting is called Out of the Darkness, and it's depicting the Miami Hurricanes with the green and orange and white coming out of the black darkness under Mario Cristobal. And I think it's spectacular, personally, and I think it'll make a great replacement for that horse's butt that you have behind you on this show every morning that people unquestionably must be really, really tired of looking at. So I'm gonna throw this in my car, and when I see you, I'm gonna transfer it to you, and that will become the new Matt Shodell backdrop for Good Morning CaneSport.
I know this is going to come as a shock to you, but you're actually not my interior decorator. The John Pace painting is a very famous Native American art painter, and I'm not replacing it. So put it in your own house.
Oh, come on, man! This guy's gonna be. You're like.
He gave it to you.
You're
he gave it to you.
You're putting you're putting a knife in his heart. Okay,
you can enjoy it. It looks like a wonderful painting. You can enjoy it.
It's a great piece of work. I mean, look at this.
Amazing.
It's spectacular.
Spectacular.
I mean, look at the colors. Look at the work. Look at the way they're exploding out of that black darkness. Listen,
the only horses they ask is somebody who tries to decorate somebody else's house who knows nothing about interior decorating themselves, which I'm going to say is probably both of us. My wife and my wife's mother, who is actually an interior decorator, they decorate the house. I have nothing to do with it. I don't need to hear about it from either of them.
I will send you, and this is one of our great subscribers now. I'm telling you, he's been with us forever. I'm going to send you.
Yeah, so why are you trying to get rid of his art? He gifted to you.
No, he gifted it to us. He gifted it to CaneSport to use in the best way that we can see fit. And I don't see any better way to use that painting than to replace that horse's ass that's sitting behind your head.
Listen, what you're doing is actually the opposite of an Indian giver. I want you to be an Indian taker. Maybe I'll consider putting it up for a few days, only if you take that and put it in your house for a few days. I'll trade with you. I know that's really what you want anyway.
Oh, the horse? No chance. No.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So why would you tell me what I have to put in my house when I can't tell you what you can put in your house? Right. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
I'm going to send you the picture.
I don't need the picture.
You'll show it to your two interior decorators, and you'll get their opinion.
No, I'm good.
And then we'll revisit it. All right.
Listen, if you want to virtually replace it somehow in my background, do whatever you want. But
I might be able to do that.
Listen, you live in John Ruiz's basement. You got to deal with the art he has in his house, okay? I live in my own house. I got to live with the art that my wife and my wife's mother, who's an interior decorator, put in my house. I can't change it. It is what it is.
I'm going to send you the picture. Maybe they'll approve. Maybe they'll like it better.
I can already tell you they will not approve.
We'll see.
Guarantee you they will not approve.
All right. Well, getting to the news of the day, Matt. I think we should start with football. Spring practice number 7 is this morning, and people are always asking, okay, what's going on at spring practice? Where's the team making progress? How is the team getting better? And we've been slowly rolling out, these tidbits of our observations and things we're hearing. And but now 6 practices in, going into practice 7 this morning, I think we have a little bit more of a feel for what's going on out there. So I started a question and answer session on the website yesterday, which is on, continues to be on the website this morning, answering questions about spring practice and also post NCAA basketball questions coming off my trip to Chicago for the Elite 8 and Sweet 16. So that's on the website this morning. But we also talk about key takeaways as Miami approaches the midpoint of spring practice, and we'll let people read that particular article to get the takes on those subjects. But I did want to, go through a few things that I've noticed and get your impressions as well on a few other things. And we've talked. Let me start with the quarterback position, Matt. We've talked so much about Jake Garcia, Tyler Van Dyke. We offended some people at the beginning of spring by suggesting that Jake Garcia was neck and neck with Tyler Van Dyke. Never meaning that we think he's going to be the starter in the fall. Just that Jake, coming off the injury and being out for 9 months or whatever, I guess 8 months, was looking very good. And it was a compliment to Jake that he came back that ready, and that's the case. Now, the last couple practices, Matt, I think you and I are in agreement that we have seen Tyler Van Dyke separate himself a little bit. He, not because Jake is doing poorly, he is not, but Tyler Van Dyke has been spectacular in the last week, and just almost every pass on the money, he's hitting the deep ball. His deep ball is beautiful. I mean, it's always on a rope. It always seems to hit the receiver in stride. He's really, really good with the deep ball. I think we could safely report to everybody, Matt, that the quarterback position's in good hands. Ja'Cory Brown's a work in progress, but there is something to work with there as well. And Tyler Van Dyke looks like he's going to be ready to be elite this fall.
Yeah, Van Dyke looks amazing. I'll just add with Garcia, it's a little hard to get a read on him. Not that he can't be maybe at Van Dyke's level. I mean, Van Dyke is playing the last 4 or 5 practices as good as any quarterback I've seen, since Ken Dorsey, just in terms of his throws and getting the ball out and all the other stuff. But Jake Garcia, they haven't done Jake Garcia any favors by not giving him any first-team reps at all that we've seen, only with the second team. The second-team offensive line has been a total disaster. So that hasn't helped Jake any. Jake literally has no time to throw. He's scrambling half the time and just running because they tag you down. And there's just been all sorts of problems up front for that second-team offensive line. So it's a little hard to get a read on Jake, but Tyler looks better than he did at the end of last year. And at the end of last year, he was outstanding. So he's the guy. We were talking about, when we were talking about Jake or Tyler, we were saying, look, if they're neck and neck and it goes into the fall, like that's just what it should be, because the coaches have to make the decision. It's not based on what you did last year. It's based on who's the best quarterback. For all we know, Jake Garcia is the next Peyton Manning / whoever you want to name, and Tyler Van Dyke might be great too. But you got to start the best guy, and I would say certainly it's clearly right now Tyler Van Dyke's the best guy right now.
Yeah. Now running backs, what we see going on is Henry Parrish asserting himself in a big time way, and he's putting a lot of pressure on Jalen Knight and Matt. There is no question about it. I think if the coaches had to pick a starter today, they would pick Henry Parrish, because Henry has been very consistent on and off the field. And Jalen Knighton is still trying to prove himself to this new coaching staff, and they're pushing him hard. I mean, they are. They know that Jalen Knighton's important to the team, but they need Jalen Knighton to be accountable every single day. And that wasn't always the case last year. I'm not going to go into details, but Jalen Knighton it continues to be a work in progress, just in doing all the right things every single day. And he's being pushed very hard by these coaches. And in the meantime, Henry Parrish is showing up as pure class. I mean, it's a kid that played a lot of good football for Ole Miss last year, and he has not missed a beat coming to Miami and has looked very, very, very good. So we're waiting to see Citizen in the fall. We're waiting to see Don Chaney in the fall. Cody Brown, I think, has been banged up a little bit and hasn't been really practicing that much. Thad Franklin is trying to hang in there in the competition. I can't predict right now where he's going to fit. But Matt, I think you would agree with me on this. The running back position is very competitive, and Henry Parrish is asserting himself.
Yeah, people get upset when you mention their size, and they say, "Oh, Jalen Knighton can break tackles and run through guys, and he can run between the tackles." Well, Jalen Knighton, these are facts. He barely averaged over 2 yards per carry after contact last year, and he had plenty of opportunities to do so, and those are not good numbers. He's a guy who is not great between the tackles. I'm sorry. And he looks even a little smaller this year than last year. They leaned him down. And I think the reason being either it's the injury and he can't work out as much, or they're going to use these backs a lot in the passing game and with just, quick outside run stuff. And Henry Parrish looks big compared to Jalen Knighton, but he's not a power back either. These are guys who are similar in terms of they have really good speed, really good vision, and they catch the ball really, really well. And so I'm very curious to see if Josh Gaddis decides to go with an offense, and they can mold their offense around whatever they want to do. So if they don't want to be a between the tackles team, those two guys can carry the load. They're outstanding running backs for what they do. They're as good as you get at the college level for what they can do. But they're not those physical downhill running backs that I think Trevante Citizen can and will be. And that to some extent Don Chaney can and will be, but Don Chaney gets hurt all the time. And if you ask him to be a physical running back, I'm not sure he holds up to that. So to me, if Trevante Citizen comes in and they say he's a great pass protector in high school, if he can pass protect at the college level, I already know what he can do. You just look at the tape and you talk to the coaches about this kid. Mm-hmm. I think he should be, if he's as good as advertised, the first and second down back, unless you fall behind or unless you want to run a hurry up 2-minute offense. And then you get between Jalen Knighton and Henry Parrish, you get 10 to 12 maybe carries a game and between 4 to 6 receptions a game. And Trevante Citizen should be getting 10 to 15 carries a game. And that sort of keeps the defense honest, because let's face it, when you have Jalen Knighton in the backfield, you're not really worried about him running up the middle. And you really want to have a defense that has to be kept honest, especially against this offense, because you don't know right now which receiver is going to break out, if any. Which tight end, Will Mallory's hurt. He'll be back in the fall, but will he be the same? I don't know. So you need to have every advantage you can, and Miami needs to be able to spread the field and have every weapon at their disposal and keep the middle linebacker in the gap and have the safeties have to go into the box sometimes because Miami's running the ball up the middle and not just outside stuff all the time. And that's just my feeling. Fans yell at me and scream at me, "Oh, Jalen Knighton can do it," but the numbers don't back that up when he runs between the tackles.
You mentioned Will Mallory. I think the passing game is going to be a lot of running backs and tight ends next year. I think the receivers are okay. Jacoby George is trying real hard to emerge as the number one guy. Xavier Restrepo is practicing very, very well, but he's not going to be a game breaker. He's more of a possession receiver. I mean, that's what his skill set is. But there's not really a receiver that is jumping off the charts, Matt, that is an absolute definitive number one guy, kind of like the way Charleston Rambo emerged last year for Miami. And so it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. I think there's going to be a lot of running backs and tight ends in the passing game. Arroyo has been practicing great at tight end. Obviously, Mallory before he had to go to surgery. And then, of course, Jaleel Skinner will be there as well. So there's a lot of weapons there at tight end. There's weapons at running back. And I just think those guys are going to be a big part of the passing game.
What I'm a little disappointed in so far is Frank Ladson, because I really thought he was going to just come in and be the guy. And not that Charleston Rambo was this breakout guy in practices last year either. He wasn't. He really didn't get going until Tyler Van Dyke became quarterback.
Yeah, really maybe Ladson becomes the same way,
Right. So Ladson, when you look at Frank Ladson run and just how smooth he is in his routes and his size, I just don't understand yet why he hasn't really broken into the first team or why he hasn't made big plays in 11-on-11. He just looks like that kind of guy. And you mentioned the short throws to the backs and the tight ends. And the way I envision this offense is I agree with you to an extent. I think it's going to be very much a within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage offense, unless somehow the offensive line gets a heck of a lot better in a hurry, because they're not going to have a choice. And then they're going to do what they did in Michigan, which is take a lot of downfield shots. And Michigan had, I want to say, the most plays of, was it over 30, 40, or 50 yards, whatever it was. There was some magic number where they had the most in the nation last year at those explosive downfield plays. And that's built in part by bringing those safeties up through the short passes and through the run game between the tackles. And then when you see them doing that, that's when you take your shots. And that's where the Frank Ladsons and the Jacoby Georges can thrive, because those guys are really good down the field.
And Tyler Van Dyke, who can get them the ball.
Right. And part of what you said is why I predicted Xavier Restrepo would lead the team in catches this year, because he's that guy who will get those 5 to 10 yard routes and turn them into a 15, 20 yard gain a lot of the times. Runs great routes, great hands. He looks outstanding. So it's going to be very interesting what they decide to do, because Josh Gaddis has an interesting situation, which really Rhett Lashley had the same problem. You have possibly great receivers now, but he had great receivers, I would argue. He had a great tight end or two, and he had a couple of really good quarterbacks, and a very average to below average offensive line. And Rhett Lashley used the hurry up quick attack. And I think Josh Gaddis is going to realize, Rhett Lashley wasn't a moron, and it's going to be very similar in terms of those quick hitters and the deep shots when you get one-on-one with the fast guy on the outside and make them pay. The only difference I think this year is they need to find that between the tackles running back, because the offensive line's not great, but you've got to be able to get yards up the middle. You just got to. It kills you on 4th and 1 and 3rd and 2 if you can't do that. They've got to be able to do that.
You mentioned the issues that we see with the second team offensive line, and I'm in total agreement. But one thing I can say is I think the first team offensive line is going to be better than people are used to. I think they're going to respond.
You're basing that on what? Them going against this defensive line in the spring, Gary? Really?
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. But
it's an unknown. Not that they won't be, but it's Zion looks amazing. The rest of the line, I'm like, eh.
Well, if, you're talking about Zion. Logan.
Logan's a second teamer, man. He hasn't even broken into the first team.
No, but I think he will. I think he will.
Yeah, but so far he's been a little bit of a disappointment to me. I thought he'd be a first teamer for sure by now.
I think he will.
You're one of the same guys that were here last year as backups or borderline first team guys.
Maybe Ja'Kai Clark is center. You got
Ja'Kai Clark the center who you thought should redshirt.
DJ Scaife looks like he'll be the right tackle.
I don't like
Rivers.
I think it should be a guard. Rivers will be good.
I think they'll have 5 or 6 guys that they can count on.
You're Mr. Optimistic. The fact that the most optimistic perspective is they might have 5 or 6 good guys, that's scary. You got Justice Olowa.
I think there'll be a few more coming in the portal before it's done too, Matt.
That's what I'm saying. They need to get a couple of big-time transfers in the offensive line, because it's not good enough.
I think there'll be a couple more coming in the portal.
What I've seen other than Zion, it's not good enough if you want a dominating offensive line. And listen, it's not on Mirabal or Cristobal. You can only coach talent so much. You got to have the talent and then take that to the next level. If you start with a C+ offensive line, you're not going to turn them into an A+ overnight. You got to start with an A offensive line and turn them into an A+. That's just the way it is.
I'll tell you something. I don't think they've given up on John Campbell either.
No, they keep talking about him like he's going to be the savior when he comes back, which is kind of
I don't know. I don't think
nothing.
I don't think they've given up on him. We'll see.
I talked to Mirabal semi-privately when I got him after that event, and he mentioned Campbell and Rivers as the 2 key guys when they come back that really is going to thrust this offensive line to where it needs to go. And I agree with the Rivers part. I didn't mention anything about seeing Campbell practice previously, but he'll figure it out when he sees him. We'll see if he's any better.
Yeah, and they'll get 1 or 2 more in the portal. I'm pretty sure of that. All right, defensively, Matt. I mean, I haven't seen a ton that I'm overwhelmed by. Really nothing on the defensive line. This Mitchell Good pickup is to me huge, big time. That kid will unquestionably be a starter at defensive end, I believe. Linebacker, nothing's really jumped out at me. DB wise, I like the way Al Blades is practicing. Tyreek is not practicing at all really yet of any serious note. Of course, Porter's not going to be here until the fall. So just not a ton. The safeties, I think Avante's been practicing pretty good. James Williams has looked decent. We've talked a lot about whether James Williams is in the right position and everything. I think he's going to he'll stick at safety this year for sure, and then they'll they can figure it out after that. I don't think that I personally still think his best position would be as a scheme linebacker. But I think he'll stay at safety this year, and that then they'll see how it goes and evaluate all that moving forward. But just not a ton to really talk about, Matt. I don't think on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, there's a couple of ways at looking at defense. I agree with you on the line and the linebacker. I think the receivers not breaking out so far this spring. Usually you've got a receiver or two by now that have just had unbelievable practices. That's not the case. And maybe that's because the defensive backs are as good as advertised, or maybe it's because the offense is still a little slow picking up this massive playbook that Josh Gaddis is installing. And that's something no one talks about.
Or a combination, in fairness.
Yeah, or a combination. But something no one talks about. Rhett Lashley had a very, very simple offense. These guys did not have to learn a lot. And this Josh Gaddis offense was very complicated. And this spring is as much about learning as about performing. And it can slow guys down. So that also could be a reason why the receiver seems to be struggling. I mean, Brashard Smith looks like he's thinking about everything way too much. I've seen him drop. I saw him drop 5 balls just in the limited amount of time I watched him specifically in the last 2 practices. And that's what happens unless you're thinking, and you assume you're going to catch the ball just naturally, but you still have to focus on the ball. And when you're thinking too much, sometimes it can distract you a little bit. Very unlike him. And I think there have been other drops. And I think, not to single him out, because other players are dropping the passes too. And backs have been dropping a lot of passes also, I should mention. So I think a lot of it is just the mental processing. I think the key for me is practice number 13 and number 14, if we get to watch that, because practice 15 is a joke. I mean, the first half, maybe they'll show some actual stuff supposedly this year in the spring game, but 13 and 14, when they're preparing for that spring game, and they should be at their best heading into the spring game, we'll get a better idea which guys are really getting it, who's playing more naturally, because right now it just looks like a lot of thinking out there and a lot of hard work and a lot of effort. And I think eventually it'll become just more of a mental repetition. It's like when I take tennis lessons, believe it or not, with my wife and my neighbors. And he doesn't do much with us. All we do is we just basically just hit the same balls every time. And my wife's like, shouldn't we be doing something different? And he's like, no, it's just mental repetition. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it, even though it's the same thing over and over again. And that's sort of like what these guys are doing. They learn a play, they do it over and over again. They learn a new play, do it over and over again. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you are doing it. And now my wife thinks she can beat me in tennis. So we'll see.
Probably can.
What?
All right. So we've got, that covers, the football that's on the website today, and practice 7 this morning, as we said. Also on the website today, we got a few different recruiting stories that you guys might take interest in. Damari Brown is a defensive back that from Plantation American Heritage in Broward County. Miami really wants badly. They're recruiting very hard. This is a kid that's got 29 offers. He's part of the American Heritage. We'll call it a 5-some at least of top prospects that Miami's trying to get every one of them. We'll see what happens there. The Canes are going to get an official visit from Damari Brown. We update him this morning. We've also got a story on another defensive back who recently got an offer from Coach Dyke, and that's Marcellus Williams. He comes from St. John Bosco out in California, and St. John Bosco is one of the top programs on the West Coast. You've often seen them matched up in these national TV games against some South Florida teams and stuff. And interesting story there is Mario tried to recruit his brother to Oregon, and the kid picked USC. So now we'll see what happens with Miami recruiting Marcellus. But we've got a story on him this morning. And we've also got a story on an offensive lineman from Tennessee by the name of Tyler Jeffries. This kid's a 6'4", 318-pounder before he even starts his senior year of high school. And Matt, what a recruiting trip he had on Saturday. He got to sit in on the offensive line meeting in the morning, which was a privilege, of course. Then he and his dad got to get their picture taken with Jimmy Johnson, among others, because it was the coach's clinic Saturday. So Miami's doing a great job there. And, just to sum up all 3 of these in one here, you're seeing a continuation. You got Miami recruiting an O-lineman from Tennessee, a defensive back from California, and a defensive back from South Florida. And what that tells you is exactly what we've been saying ever since Mario Cristobal arrived. This is a recruiting effort that is spreading its tentacles all across the United States. And if there's a good player, these coaches are not afraid to go after him, no matter where he lives.
Yeah, they're definitely casting way too wide a net. There's no way they can ever stay in touch with all these kids. It's a disaster, Gary. It's a total disaster. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, it's the first time we've seen this since probably, I want to say pre-Larry Coker. I haven't seen the staff do this since Larry Coker and beyond, where the Larry Coker staff some of them would just go off lists. They would literally offer off our list. I know that for a fact because one of them told me that. This staff does not do that. This staff evaluates film. They want to meet prospects. One of the prospects said he didn't get an offer until he literally got face to face, and the coach was like, "Oh, you're a little bigger than I thought. You have an offer." They're not just out to give you an offer just to give an offer. And when they give an offer, they stay in touch with you. I don't know how they do that. There's not enough time in my day. I don't know how much time they have in their day. Apparently, Mario sleeps 2 hours a day is what I think I've been told. 3 hours a day.
About it, yeah, maybe 3, but not many more.
And he's constantly in touch with recruits because he understands you can't build a program through laziness, and you can't build a program without recruiting. And they're casting a gigantic net. I've never seen anything like the spring visits already, just through a couple of weeks. I've never seen anything like the number of offers that have gone out. And we've talked about that before, especially on the offensive line. It's like Alex Mirabal has offered, I think every offensive line, I could just call a random offensive lineman, blindfold me, point my finger at an offensive lineman.
They'll have spoken to Mirabal, no doubt.
A decent player, and they'll have talked to Mirabal, or at least have whether they have an offer or not, but they've been probably heard from Mirabal. It's incredible. Yeah, incredible what this coaching staff has accomplished in such a short period of time. Now I think they've got to continue doing exactly what they're doing. I think they've already given out a lot of the offers they need to. They'll do obviously a huge spring evaluation, maybe have some more offers out there. But it's almost like, fans always want commitment, but it's almost like you don't want those commitments just yet, because the big fish, man, they come in the fall. They take their official visits. They have everybody recruiting them in the world. The guys that Miami traditionally got this early are guys, you call them 2-stars or 3-stars or projects. That's generally the guys you get this time of year, except for the outliers once in a while who are amazing prospects who just always wanted to be at Miami. They don't want to consider anyone else or play the recruiting game. But nowadays, the ones who are the big fish, man, they wait. And if you fill up with 10 or 15 commitments right now, you either got to break some hearts and piss off some schools that you don't want to piss off to take the guys you need down the road, or you're just not going to get the guys down the road. So I sort of like that they're going after everyone, stay after everyone, and then figure it out. There's no rush. Figure it out in September, October. You should have 10, 15 spots left then. And you should know by then, after these kids start taking their official visits everywhere, they'll know because they've built the relationships. Hey, Brandon Innes, what are you thinking? And Brandon Innes, if you built that relationship, he'll tell you, listen, I love you guys, or he'll say, I'm coming to you guys, but I'm not announced until signing day. And when you have that relationship and you know what these kids are doing, that's the key, because you're not getting played anymore. In the previous, staffs would get played left and right, man. And there was misses, and they'd freak out. And the kid they hadn't recruited for 2 months, all of a sudden they call him up. Hey, we need you. I don't know what happened. Our recruiting department screwed up. Like, we need you at Miami now. The staff won't be doing that. And that's huge.
Yeah. All right, so that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. Hope we've given you a little insight into what's going on. Practice number 7 this morning. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We thank you as always for joining us, and everybody have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Goodbye, everybody.